think I've got WhatsApp. Got it. I think I've got my Oluwatobi, can you let me screen share, please?
Yeah, let me make you co-host. Okay. Co-host. Yes, you are now a co-host.
Okay. So where is my? Here somewhere. Has to be here somewhere. See, show all windows. Yes, there it is. Okay, could you see that? Yes, everyone can see that?
Yes, we can. We can see it.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go into the photos, and I think I can run from one to the next, to the next, to the next, all the way down from beginning to last. So I'll just say a few words as we go through. First of all, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Yes, you can see a big photo. Yes. Okay, good. Okay, so this is one of 2 or 3 photos. Oh, wait a minute. I need to just put this on minimum so I can see my forward arrow. Okay, yes, this is one of 2 or 3 photos that were taken from different points of view with different lighting. Also the rabbits. What happens when you go down low is that they become much bigger. They stop looking like pieces of paper. So this could, I mean, we know that they are paper, but this could almost be made in some other material at another scale. If we take away the corner at the back, the edge, and at the top right, take away that angle, then they're almost in a landscape. Whereas the others are from a higher viewpoint, and they look like pieces of paper on the table. These first ones have transformed to become something else, whereas these, because they're taken from a higher viewpoint, still look like pieces of paper. To me, things become much more interesting when they transform, when they stop looking like pieces of paper on the table. And that's what this first one does. These are maybe better lighting, better compositions, but the first one for me was a much more interesting photo, and it would be perhaps worth thinking about always photographing from a low angle, like this is from a low angle. And another problem here, I think, is that we need a bit more light and shade on the paper. Those two polygons at the front are the same color. One should be light and one should be dark, and then it would really pop, I think. What I would have done here, I would have put one behind the other or slightly hiding another, even a lower viewpoint to see inside the piece at the front more. This is one of those that I think needs another minute or two, just patiently kind of moving the paper around, taking a few test shots, looking into the camera, seeing what you took and moving something a little bit. To photograph 3 pieces is quite difficult to do well. Here, they're very separate. To make them overlap makes the composition look much more interesting, I think. So if the person who did this wants to go back and try again, I would make them overlap more. And also maybe the light is a little flat. I would try to put the light to the side or perhaps a little more above or somewhere. But at the moment, it's not really showing the shadows like it could do if the light was moved. This again is similar, isn't it? That they're very separate. They still look like pieces of paper on the table, whereas if the viewpoint was quite low down, for example, so the front piece overlapped the 2 at the back, then I think that would be a much more interesting composition. This is beginning to work better, isn't it? But again, they could perhaps overlap a little more. Background works very nicely, I think. That, you know, simple colors, simple backgrounds. That one's working well. This is very minimal, isn't it? Just, you know, white on white. How how minimal can you get? But it's very beautiful, very, you know, eerie. There's a lot of mystery about that, quite an atmosphere about it, quite a kind of mystical thing. And we know it's paper, but it could be something else, or it could be something more graphic, you know, CGI or whatever that was put together. It doesn't particularly look like paper. And that wonderful minimal background with the two tones, the dark that's vertical and the lighter tone that's horizontal. This is similar, isn't it? This lovely curve in the paper, or curves, if you look at the one on the left as well. Very subtle, very sensitive, but really very beautiful, isn't it? Very delicately photographed. Would be interesting to try slightly different viewpoints. I don't know how many photos were taken of this, but, you know, just to move a centimeter left or right, up or down, would change it quite dramatically. And it would be interesting to see the same camera angle, but with very different lighting or a more dramatic background. Yes, and a third piece, it's almost not there, isn't it? You see, you see the shadow underneath, but you know, why is there a shadow? What's happening there? What's going on? Very subtle, very sensitive. Lovely. This needs cropping, I think. It needs the top and the bottom taking out so that we focus more on the paper. And also, I don't know, maybe a lower viewpoint again. When the if you photograph paper from a high angle, it always looks like folded paper. But when you start to go down lower, as we saw in some of the other photographs before, it begins to transform into something else. It's not always, you know, looking like a piece of paper anymore. It's much more enigmatic, somehow more significant. Yeah, this is getting there, isn't it? But perhaps again, to overlap the pieces so that we can have a front and a middle and a back, and lovely lighting. I like all those different tones. Yeah, this is what, 3 pieces together? This is very complicated, isn't it? And I like, this looks to be what's the name? A monochrome kind of filter, you know, black and white. So I think this is it's a very complicated, very interesting photograph. There's a lot happening. You know, my eye is looking around and around at all kinds of shapes and tones. I particularly like the line that goes from the bottom of the photo towards the left edge. Can you see that shadow line that zigzags across the paper? It's a beautiful line. Really lovely how it goes left and right up towards the top left. That shadow line. Really, really nice. It's in a very simple background and a very tight crop. Yes, and this is kind of the opposite, isn't it? You know, full of color and shadow, making a vignette around the edges. Again, there's a real atmosphere here, isn't there? And we're losing that sense again of paper. You know, is it paper? Is it something else? We don't perhaps know. And maybe it doesn't matter. It's just a very engaging, you know, composition using light and shade. And another with different colors, different filters. Beautiful. I would almost make it simpler. I would almost take away the piece on the right, just have one single piece in there. How simple can you make it? Well, perhaps this is an answer. Yeah, almost like a building or a structure in the park, a pavilion or something. You can imagine that might be 5 or 6 meters tall. Yes, these are still looking like pieces of paper on the table, aren't they? Again, we need to go down lower to really get in there to see what they're like from close up and from when they're overlapping. This makes all the difference, doesn't it? You know, when you get in there and you take the camera angle lower down. But the light, the piece at the front left is beautifully lit. I could almost take that as a close-up, you know, cut it out from the rest of the photo. That particular piece of the 4 is very beautiful. Yes, and again, they're kind of displayed, aren't they, rather than you know, transforming to something else. But again, that piece at the front left is working. The pieces at the back left and the front right are very flat because of the lighting. Quite surprising how the lighting, you know, can make them look beautiful or just flat. You have to be very careful when you have multiple pieces in there. Wow, this is almost not there at all, isn't it? Bit like, you know, the bit like the Egyptian pyramids in the morning mist or something, probably as they were a few thousand years ago when they were white. Beautiful, very subtle, very sensitive. Really lovely. And something much more graphic. That curved edge, can you see it from the top to the bottom? That beautiful curve that goes down the paper. It's lovely, isn't it? And that contrast of the background between the texture that's on the yellowy green at the back and the flat red on the floor. Very lovely piece, beautiful piece. That's not quite so successful, isn't it? That's a bit flat. Would have been nice to get that turned a little bit, or perhaps the light in a different place. Doesn't quite work as well as the one before. But I like the way that it's been cropped to show the color on the wall and the floor. Yeah, that's very minimal, isn't it? And I love the reflections that you get. Can you see them? That kind of zigzag edge that's going down, and very interesting. Love the background too. This kind of slightly out of focus kind of background, and very sophisticated, interesting shot. Very simple, isn't it? There's not a lot going on, but very sensitively put together. Wow, that's almost not there at all, isn't it? That's a real, you know, filter shot, isn't it? But my students do this sometimes, you know, that the photograph they take is the starting point, not the end point. So you go into a whole other area of, you know, graphic design that you don't get when you just take a, you know, straightforward photograph. Very interesting. But yeah, the animals give a sense of scale, don't they? But again, I would like to have gone in lower with the camera to maybe have, you know, turned the paper into kind of boulders or something that the animals were kind of moving around between. So you see little bits of animal here or there. Yes, that's all about the camera angle, I think. Maybe also a tighter zoom to get right in there. Yes, and that's the same, but without, isn't it? That's almost a better shot, isn't it? But, you know, I'd like to see that cropped. I'm doing it myself. Just kind of cropping that to go in quite tight, I think would improve it quite a lot. You know, it's just playing with the camera, isn't it? Nice thing about these digital cameras, digital photography in the phone is that you can just take photo after photo after photo, just keep playing and playing. You know, what if this, what if that, what if something else? And if you don't like them, you just delete them. So that was the last one, I think. There were really good photographs, many of them, and the ones that didn't work, actually, I think are more interesting in a funny kind of way, because they're the ones that have much more kind of potential and possibility. So thank you for that. I hope that was interesting. I hope you got something from that, and even what I said about your work and other people's work as we went through, because it's possible not to be the greatest, paper folder in the world and, technically very accomplished. But if you have a good eye and if you're prepared to be creative and try things, it's not just what you make, it's how you use it, how you photograph it that becomes important. This is something that I emphasize again and again when I teach design students. It's not about becoming a technical master. It's about being able to use what you know and to use it creatively and to use it in a way that's personal to you. And a very good way to explore this is by taking photographs like you just did, because it's kind of something anybody can do, isn't it? We've all got cameras, in the phones, and we can all take kind of photographs. So I think it's a very good exercise for opening out that creativity, not in the way that you make things, but in how you use them in a design context. And designing is about being visually sensitive. It's not about how much you know, it's about that sensitivity to use what you know in a way that somehow has significance, that these perhaps quite uninteresting pieces of paper acquire an interest when you photograph them in a way that's much more kind of interesting. What I want to do, if I can just take a minute, is to screen share some work that my students did. So this is the same exercise. Now, these are students of design, and they had a lot more time than you, so don't panic, all right? They use Photoshop and they put in digital backgrounds and they do all kinds of things to make the photography more interesting. They make proper little studios so they can photograph things carefully. They use light filters to change the colors of the lights. They use different colored papers or even plastic, as in this case, and also some digital figures, as you might have realized. So that they really create very openly and freely, adding all kinds of effects to their work, or just making them very minimal, very architectural. This is actually 2 exposures, or just black and white. I love the sense of going into this, going right into it. But it's just 3 very simply folded pieces of paper, similar to what you just did. But the angle is very low and very carefully controlled lighting. Backlighting. Yeah, this is a bit more complicated, very graphic, but I think rather nice. Okay, this is one of my students had an obsession with Star Wars. Everything he did was Star Wars. So and just black paper. Putting the photo through a filter and adding some digital people. They're like aliens almost, aren't they? So with time and some more time than you had, it's very possible to improve the quality, but you just need to play with the paper, play with your lights, play with the angles that you photograph from, and you will find really excellent combinations of those. These are actually some real people. She drew them and printed them and put them in the photo, and all this colored paper and a light at the back. It's a beautiful piece of work, very different to what you just did aesthetically. But why not use textures and stripes and dots and, lots of color? So that was just a quick exercise to show you some of the teaching that I do, because when I teach, I'm not very interested to teach technical skills. They are important to a certain extent, but they can also be a dead end where people just, concentrate on this and they forget what it is they're actually doing, which is designing furniture or designing clothes or jewelry or whatever their speciality is. So this is what I do when I teach. I don't just teach origami designs, I teach the application of folding techniques into design. And I usually start with this photography exercise because it really gets the students working creatively and it gets them thinking outside the box. Because when they start my course, most of the students think we're going to be spending a semester making dragons and elephants, and obviously we're not. So that was just a little taste of what I've been doing all these years. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We have a little bit of time. So thank you for me. And if anybody has any questions, I'll happily take them.
Okay, any questions, anybody? If you have a question, just unmute your mic and feel free, either a question, a comment, or whatever it is, just feel free.
Yeah, you can put them into chat if you want.
Yeah. Going through the chat. Yes, really beautiful. I just joined. No clue. Okay. Yes, these are really cool. Wow, beautiful. Okay. So while whoever wants to ask a question is thinking on the question, I would also say that one of the reasons why this particular session, why Paul's session is absolutely important to the fellowship and to our learning process is that, like I said, rightly, origami in itself is there's an end to it. So there's a starting point, and then it's closed in a way, it's enclosed. But also what we are also learning, to impact others with is as well creativity, thinking outside the ordinary, thinking outside what you normally do. And one of the things that I have noticed is that the grandest of things, come out of very simple things, but with very upside down perspective. Let me put it that way. Everybody's looking at it from this particular perspective, and someone else comes the same view and just sees it from a whole different point of view. And that is how the grandest, all of the grand buildings and designs in the Dubai's and the Qatar's, it's just people seeing things from very, very let me say weird perspective. And before you know it, a masterpiece is here. So absolutely important. And the exercise was really, really good to stimulate and help, to see from very different dimensions. Yes, I think that I see Auntie Inka's up. Yes, Auntie Inka, yes, you have the floor.
Thanks. Hi, Toby. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Thank you very much for a fascinating session. Initially, I was a bit lost, but then I found it. And so for me, like you said, origami, Toby said, origami is structured. You have to do this fold in certain ways to get to your desired result. But this, like he said, you are thinking intuitively. And so even the positioning of the dot and the positioning of the lines to create the angles is intuitive. So if you set out with an intention and then you just let it flow at the end of the day, and then the composition, if we had more time, obviously, one could go on and on and on. But you see, it's also just beautiful the way these shapes they come into their own life, so this has it's kind of like given me an idea particularly for a workshop, where you're just creating with the same it was the same instruction, but everybody had different results. So it's just fascinating to me. Thank you so much. I've learned something great today.
Thank you. That's very kind. Yes, when I teach, I want my students to develop their own voice. And I know that if I teach them a box or an elephant or something, it may be a beautiful piece of origami, but they've only learned to box or an elephant. But if I teach them something like this, and I pass the responsibility for making something creative to them, I mean, with my help, of course, I talk to them to help them, but then they can do something personal. And yes, it does become intuitive and it becomes very open-ended, and they can apply these sort of exercises to jewelry, to buildings, to furniture, to whatever it is that they specialize in making. Because I do believe that folding, I don't often use the word origami, but folding is a very creative thing. But you don't have to be a technical master to be, to be creative. There are other ways to be creative by folding, and this is what I try to teach when I work with students, to give them the possibility to be creative and to make them feel at the end that they don't need me anymore. This is the ambition of every teacher, to make yourself redundant, because they own it. They know what they want to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. There's a question in the chat session. I think that'll be the last question we're taking. It says, is there any developed curriculum for this particular session for it to become a part of skill dissemination to instill creativity for would-be learners?
Well, I mean, I teach full courses. I work in work here in Tel Aviv in the School of Design, and I teach every week, and I run workshops. So in that sense, it's part of a 12 to 15 week semester, this particular workshop. And when I teach overseas, I travel quite a bit, then I might teach it there as well. But as regards something certified by the Ministry of Education or something, no. I mean, I don't work in that way. I work directly with designers and with students of design, where I kind of almost make it up as I go along. I mean, I have many workshops in my head that I could do because I've been teaching for many years, and I often kind of, smell the group. What can they do? What's interesting for them? What do they have a problem with? And then I change the workshops, to fit the group of students, and also to fit the amount of time I have with them. So this, no, it's not really part of any, certified instruction. It's just one of the workshops I do, and I've realized that it's, quite a good one to get the students thinking out of the box, to think creatively, rather than be scared about, oh, I don't know how to make a bird, oh, I can't make an elephant, I'm not good at origami, I can't do origami. Well, you can fold if you're not good at origami.
Well, that's it. You can fold as long as your motor skills, your hands can work on the paper. You can fold. Yes.
Even
non-judgment. That's the thing.
Yeah,
non-judgment.
even just poor, motor skills. I mean, it doesn't matter, because you can take them into 3D printing, into vacuum forming, into using hinges and wood and metal and plastic and fabric, and you can make them virtual. You can do whatever you want. You don't necessarily have to make them in your hands with paper. Very few of the final project pieces that my students make are made in paper. We begin with paper because it's quick and easy and cheap to fold paper. But in the end, they probably use another material or another manufacturing technique, or both. It's a means to an end. It's not an origami exercise. It's a means to get the students to create some products that transform. This is what folding is. It said in the movie at the start that folding is about transforming, and that's what I want the students to do in the end. But even those without great motor skills, they can still work in this way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay, I think I can answer this question myself. Says, if yes, can we have a sample? But if no, can we? So what Paul is saying in essence is, over the time that he has folded with experience, and also depending on the beneficiaries, whoever is going to have the session, the workshop, who are in the workshop, intuitively, you just know that, okay, this best suits this, that best suits that. So there's really no one shoe fits all. That's the idea in the first place, just instinctively, okay, this would work, that would work. And yes, we can all see that it really just works. It just opens your mind to many different possibilities. All right, thank you so much. We will not hold on more of your time. Thank you so much, Paul, for an amazing session. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody. I hope that had some meaning for you and wasn't just a bit weird, or maybe it perhaps was a bit weird, but in time, perhaps it'll, go down.
Crystallizes.
So, yeah. Sometimes things take a while to be made sense of, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
So thank you. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
Thank you so
much. Thank you for all your work as well, everybody.
Thank you.
I mean, it was very nice to see, and I hope you'll continue to push the edges back. This is where the interesting work always happens, in my opinion.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, would hopefully, if we can have you around for our closing ceremony, if you can make time. If not, we'll see you some other time. Thank you so very much.
Pleasure. So thank you, everybody, and goodbye. Bye for now.
Goodbye. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. All right. I hope that we all enjoyed that. Of course, I understood, because I have worked with Paul before. So I also didn't want to give you a heads up of what to expect. It would first look weird, of course. What exactly are we doing? Where are we going? But when you get into it, and then you start to see the possibilities, and you start to see what he's trying to do with your mind, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. All right, thank you for being a part of the session. This is our last academic session in the sense. So we've had many different tracks. I think the design is the one that caps it all. And next week, we're going to be having our pitch. That is the presentation of our pilot project. Already, the two different groups, the group A and group B, are already working on their projects and presentation of it. I think I was in a meeting of group A this week on my birthday as well. And what they're cooking up is absolutely amazing. They're cooking up something amazing. So the group B too are, trying to do a thing or two in the background. But now it just means that you have only 1 week. You have from now till next Sunday to not just come up with your ideas, and coming up with the ideas involves a lot of things, empathizing, and ideating, and having a prototype and all of that design thinking, and then before you know what exactly fits who or whoever you're working with. Now, like I said with the group A's meeting, I said put two things in mind very importantly. One is sustainability of whatever projects that you are, whatever problem that you're trying to solve. It has to be, it cannot be a one-off. And that is why we have put you in about the same place where you can always find somewhere that is close for everybody to walk around. And you will not just go there once and then they would not see you again. They would enjoy it once and it's disappearing. No. So sustainability plan is very important. It also helps the beneficiaries to actually really get the meat of whatever that you're bringing in. Imagine this fellowship had to be like a week or max 2 weeks. You would have gotten very little or nothing at this time. So that's the first one. I think the second one would be the measurement of your impact. Of course, the idea is to create social impact, but it has to be measurable. How do we know that your intervention, your project, your idea actually met the needs that you wanted it to meet. That is also very important. So there has to be a way. It could be physical forms or e-forms or whatever. And it doesn't have to also be that it is that day. It could be over time, you know, just having to see the progress that these people make, how it changes their lives over time, how it changes their focus, for instance, their motor skill, etc. So whatever that you're planning, please also put in mind that measurement is very important. So by next week, we're just going to come on board like this, and we're going to have the two different groups come up with their slides, because we expect them to put it in a slide, you know, before they go and work on it. So put it in a slide, come up with it, and tell us what they want to do. So whatever, we'll evaluate it together, what needs to be added, what needs to be removed and modified. You know, we'll just try to do everything together for the two groups. So that is what we are basically doing next week. And then the week after is going to be the execution. So each of the groups pick a day that is convenient for them in the group, and for the be it organization or whatever community that they want to make their impact. You know, they have to agree. There has to be synergy. So whatever day that they have picked, one of the days they go there, execute that project, at least for that first time. They execute the project, and then, of course, pictures taken that can be shared on the group. We can share it on the in our next meeting, and then we start our major project, which is the Fold and Heal project. So as time goes on as well, all of that would unravel so that we don't take more of our time. So any questions quickly? Any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I think we've exceeded 4. Thank you very much for being a part of this. Okay, Dr. Fumi has a question. Yes, Dr. Fumi, you have the floor.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so I missed most of the early parts of the presentation. I don't know whether you can just see, or I can see a sample of the folding, maybe in a video in the platform, because I sincerely do not even understand what was done today.
Fantastic.
I'm sorry about it.
No, that's okay. Even like I said when I started, even the people that were on did not understand what was happening in maybe the first 20 minutes, you know, so I can understand your point of view. But of course, this is a recorded session. We will be sharing this session on the group so that you can watch it from start to finish, and you know, you get a proper perspective of everything. For those that were in the session as well, they can rewatch it so that the things that you perhaps missed, you know, you can bring those things into proper perspective. And like Paul said, he's like sowing a seed. You know, he just introduced the idea. You can still go back to that same fold that you have made and take it from many different point views, use different filters, add different things, different models, and before you know it, you have a model that is almost looking like a masterpiece somewhere in Singapore or in Abu Dhabi, you know. So it's open-ended. We can still engage in that and do as much as we can. So yes, I hope that answers your question, Ma.
Yeah,
yes.
very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, Auntie Yinka, and then.
Hi. Okay, this is about the pitch, right? So
Yep.
I know that, well, at least speaking for myself, we usually have these meetings via our phones. And I know in order to share slides, you have to have a laptop. So I'm going to ask you if it is possible. I don't know who is pitching in our own group, but if it is possible to send the presentation to you, and then you share the screen, and then we just talk. Yeah.
Oh, great. So yes, we can do that in 2 ways. Either, as you said it, you know, you can always send it to me if there is no one with a PC on the
with
group.
a PC, exactly.
Yes, but if there's anybody that is with a PC, you can also share with them. I will just make them co-host, and that makes them able to share. Yes, so you can work like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. You're welcome. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. The evaluation form for this session will be dropped in the chat session later so that we can fill it in. Thank you and have an amazing Sunday and a beautiful week ahead. Enjoy. Cheers, everybody.